like that, where you have thousands and thousands of young people who've taken over this entire area and who've declared independence. They have dropped out and they have started to create an entire new culture, which was never been seen and which was now going to become the revolution. It was a new world. I mean, that was what we believed. We were going to create a new world. But we couldn't. And it all fell apart. But in amongst this, in the midst of this, so I was there in 1970. I, product of all of this, and I had this dream of a new world. I happened to find myself living on the same street as the Krishna temple. And I thought to go and let's talk, spiritual life. And then I met Srila Prabhu, not physically at that time. I got a book. And when I read that book, I got this faith. Somehow, I just really felt that he knows God. It just maybe I just was young and it just hit me. He knows God. And that faith, because he declared that he knew God. I mean, that's the first thing. I accepted that he knew God because he said he did, and he really did talk like he did. He wrote, and it was all so clear. And it was, ask me any question. It was like that. There's so many of my other fellow disciples who recall how they grew up with their priest or their and they would ask questions, and the priest would say, "No one can answer that. That's a mystery. Oh, that you can't. You don't know." And they just said, "No one can answer." I ask about, well, what if God is it? What do I do? And they get angry, perhaps. Why are you asking all these questions? Just come to church, or come to temple, or whatever. But Prabhupada would never say that. Oh, I don't know. Here it is. Krishna says this. Krishna says that. Here Krishna says it. Here's what it says here. He knew it all. I mean, I have never. If you start to listen to his talks, every other sentence practically he's quoting some shastra, some Sanskrit from here, from there. He's quoting this, that source, this. I have yet to see anyone. Frankly, I have yet to practically. Probably there are some of his disciples who have studied to that extent and have that kind of memory. I certainly don't. Who can just back it all up.
Look, I'm sorry to interrupt.
No, go ahead.
In India, usually all this Vedas has been passing from gurus to disciples, from word to, mouth to ears. There was no written.
It wasn't written, yeah.
And Vedas has like such thousands of verses, and they all just comes through like thousands of years. Of history.
Yeah. But unfortunately, it also people may know the words but not the meaning. So that's the first thing. If you read these books and you watch the movie or you listen and you think, yes, this is someone I can have faith in as a teacher, then it is our proposal that you accept him as a teacher. Read his books. And as you do so, you accept that he's like the grandfather teacher. He's not here for you to ask questions. That's, at least it appears that, although I've experienced, and I know many others who never even met Srila Prabhupada, who have asked questions and then, took the book and opened it up and that was the answer. So there are mystical things that happen. So it's our proposal that Srila Prabhupada can help you with his books, with his followers, and that if you learn about it, you'll find that not only does he explain things very logically and sensibly, but as you learn more about how he lived and what he did, and you'll find a couple of things. One, like this is just was describing this this movie that you watch, I hope. You'll see that he had to undergo a lot of trouble. He came to America not on a plane. He begged passage on a steamship. You heard in the little trailer that Srimati Murarji was remembering and how she told him, "Old man, you're going to die." And he practically did. He had 2 heart attacks on the ship. He practically died. 69 years old. Had no money. $7. He had managed by begging and walking the hot, dusty streets of Delhi to print some volumes of the Srimad Bhagavatam that he had translated by himself, typing on an old typewriter, composing it, proofreading it, editing it. He did everything on his own. An old man without any money, with a firm conviction that he must do this. On the order of his guru, he had to do it. Whether he would succeed or not, he had to do it because he was ordered. He must do it. And he believed that by the order, everything would be possible. He came like that, penniless. He arrived in New York in a few days, in fact. What is it, September 19th, I think? Or 18th? In a few days, we're celebrating.
September 18th, 1960.
Yeah, September 18th, his ship, after experiencing these heart attacks on the ship, his prayers are answered. And the captain comments that he'd never seen the Atlantic be as peaceful. So for his passage, smooth ride. He lands in Boston first as his first exposure to America. And it happened, Ram Roy, you know Boston. Yeah. So he landed up in what do they call it?
Commonwealth Pier.
Commonwealth Pier, but just just near. If he walked into town, you would get into, I think you call it Tenderloin, right? It's the red light district of Boston. Is just a few blocks from Commonwealth Pier. So if he managed to go in, and I think he did walk with the captain, he would see the America at its nastiest. And what am I going to do? What's going? How are anyone going to? I'm going to come here to tell people. He used to say this. I'm coming to say, no meat, no illicit sex, no intoxication, no gambling. And they'll say, go home. That's what he thought. What am I going to do this? But he wrote a poem, beautiful poem. He wrote a poem, and in the end of the poem, he says, "So Krishna, I'm just a puppet in your hands. So now, if you want me to dance, then make me dance." And he did. It took a little while, but after about 1 year of just, he came to, he did have one contact. One, because to get into America, you had to have a sponsor, okay? So no H-1 visas those days, which he couldn't get anyhow. You know, a 69-year-old man with, he wouldn't have been able to get that, sannyasi monk. But he did get a sponsor, Gopal Agrawal, who brought him to his home in Butler, Pennsylvania. And there he began his observation of America. And then he came to New York. He saw his first winter when he looked out the window on Riverside Drive, staying in a office room. He did not even a bathroom. It was an office type of room, maybe this size from where Natabar's shoulder is to where I am. Just that was it. You had to go down the hall to use the bathroom, and you had to cook somewhere else. When he saw the first snowfall, he looked out and thought, have they whitewashed the city? And he just, but he kept going. And one day, some people started to come to listen to him talk about the Gita. And one of them said, "Hey, I'm a loft apartment down in the Lower East Side. So why don't you stay there for a bit?" So he ended up there with a crazy guy staying there too, who on an acid trip threatened to kill him. He ran out of the apartment fearing for his life, knocked on the door of another young man who'd met him some weeks before and had been attending his classes. His name was Michael Grant, later became Mukunda. He brought him in, and Mukunda, along with a few other people, they found a small storefront at 26 Second Avenue in the Lower East Side. They scrounged together the rent, not knowing how this is going to happen, what's going to happen. And that became Hare Krishna. 26 Second Avenue. It's still there.
Yes.
You can go and visit. They're not open nowadays because of COVID restrictions. But you can see the tiny place that it all began. And it just started taking shape. Because he came at the time that came at just the time. With just the right mood. He wasn't, I'm from India and I'm a Swami and I'm going to, teach you yoga and make some tricks. No. He came, he sat down, he simply chanted the mantra and he cooked and he fed. He made wonderful meals and he spoke and he accepted. It was said there's one friend of mine who became one of the leaders in San Francisco because the same person, Mukunda, who helped him get this place, ended up going to San Francisco. They ended up starting the center there. It started to really take, now the hippies are really, of course, this Second Avenue was, how many of you visited St. Mark's place? You know St. Mark's place. Yeah. So, between First and Second Avenue, St. Mark's Place, that's still the remnants of the Lower East Side 60s. Is something is there, but the the freak scene in New York was still a bit, it was more intellectual, and it's a different kind of scene. But, Haight-Ashbury was the place. And this Shyama Sundar, his name is, he's written beautiful books about these days. He recalls just some years back meeting one of the leaders of the Haight-Ashbury scene there, who was, I think he was in charge of the Family Dog Auditorium. He was one of the persons who really got things going. And he was talking about Prabhupada. He was saying he wasn't like the others. He's saying he was one of us. That is the character that I want you to meet. I want you to get to know Srila Prabhupada as a person who really can be with you. He can truly be a person that you can connect with as a friend, as a mentor, as a father or grandfather or great-grandfather, whatever the case may be. And know that in a spiritual way, he can nourish you, he can sustain you, he can help you along the way. He can connect you with others, his followers, his disciples, one of whom may become your personal guru, your own, that may come. But in the meantime, get to know him, please. Watch the movie. It's a good way. Or read the books and see if you find what we found. Here's a person that we can trust. There's many things that he teaches that I have trouble with. I don't understand certain things. And it's interesting. I know I know that I don't know, and I know I should know because I keep hearing him talk about these things. The one that comes to my mind is the 8,400,000 species of life. If you hear him talk about it, you'll hear, he often quotes this because it's in the Shastras.
It's in
the Puranas.
Basically yonis.
Various types.
12
8,400,000. There's 900,000 aquatics and 100, and it's all. And he makes a big point that the Shastra gives us here it is. We don't have to study anything. We don't have to go to be botanist or zoologist or whatever. It's right there. 8,400,000. Now it happens that 400,000 of these are human. Oh, wait a minute. What does that mean?
400,000 variants of human.
Various types. And then I think, well, okay, yeah. Is he talking about races? Is he talking about ethnic? What? And he never explains it. There's no details, but it's there. And that was Srila Prabhupada. He would take, because he gives us what's there in Shastras. One of the principles of descending knowledge is that a guru doesn't stand alone. A guru is supported by scriptures or shastras and other gurus. So these three together. So I hope you're living in what you told me is the most important city in the world. I mean, he told many people that New York is, and would you disagree? Is New York not the capital of the world? What do you think?
It is.
Kind of.
It's got the UN.
Yeah, it is.
I mean, it's the financial,
The
news media. It's the big apple. So it is. I think at least we like to think of this. So
Jagannath Puri.
we'll talk about that. I mean, spiritual capital is another story.
Spiritual.
That's another story. But in terms of the material capital, New York is fantastic. And that's what Srila Prabhupada came here to begin this movement. And we hope that we can serve him. So I hope I've been able to give you a little something about Srila Prabhupada. And if you have any questions about, try to answer.
I would like to know, like, what was your first impression or your, when you met, Prabhupada?
When I physically met him,
physically met, any like experience or? you
my
felt
first
something or-
experience was very brief because as I said, I mean, I felt attracted to him by reading his books. But then about a year later, it was 1971, I had joined an ashram, I was like Natabara and Ramboy and Gopal. I had joined one of the ISKCON ashrams, first in Toronto, Canada, and then in Buffalo, New York. So I was living the life of a brahmachari, and maybe you've heard, you probably know more about what brahmachari. Brahmachari is like Natabara, single, just without any clothes on his back, practically speaking, living a simple life in an ashram and living with others communally. So I had joined an ashram, and I was ISKCON ashram, and I'd been practicing the chanting 16 rounds of Japamala every day, following all the rules. And I was prepared to accept and be initiated. Initiation is a formal acceptance of a guru. The guru accepts the disciple, and the disciple accepts the guru after some testing, mutual testing. And there are some commitments made at that time. I made a commitment, a vow to continue this practice of chanting the Hare Krishna mantra 16 times on my mala, or 16 rounds on something. Anyway, 1,728 mantras a day. I made a commitment. And I committed myself to follow these 4 rules. I would not eat any meat or fish, I would not have any sex outside of marriage, no illicit sex, and I would not gamble. That was easy. I never was into gambling. I did play cards with my children, but we never used any
money.
So never bought a lottery ticket at all. That was in 1971. And that was my first physical meeting. But it was very brief. And I didn't really form that much of an impression because I kind of came in and gave me my name, Pancharatna, 5 jewels. Again, I didn't know what that even meant. Still don't really know what it means. I mean, I know it means 5 jewels, but what did 5 jewels have anything to do with Krishna? That I'm not, I've heard a few things, but basically my name means servant of Pancharatna, which has something to do with Krishna. There's a Pancharatna Giti, there's various. I asked at that time, there was a secretary, Srila Prabhupada had a secretary to pick out the names. And I asked him, what does it mean? And he said, some king, something. But the time my first real impression was about a year later. I acquired, by the grace of my mother, we're playing way over time, aren't we? It's okay? All right. I'll just answer this question. So I acquired videotape equipment. Now, today you can get high definition 4K video on your phone, right? But in those days, it was black and white, a reel-to-reel tape recorder. And which was about this big, like that, with a separate camera. And anyway, you can see them. They're on the internet, on YouTube. You can watch it. So I set it up, and I was filming Srila Prabhupada. And at this time, he had just come to New York. So I've been there now for about a year. And he'd just come to New York. And he gave a talk, and after the talk, there was a kirtan like we had in the beginning. And he would sing along with the kirtan. And at one point he took over leading the kirtan. And this was all on film. So I brought him to his room for him to watch himself. And what I was struck with is he appeared, as he watched himself, as he watched the kirtan, as he watched himself singing, he started clapping along and singing along. And I had this sense that he had no ego here. He was simply appreciating the kirtan, not himself. That was my first strong impression of Srila Prabhupada. And I guess that was borne out on future, the absence of ego, of false ego, this utter humility and sense of a person who was living in the consciousness of being a servant of Krishna. Always. So that's I'd say. Krishna. All right. So I hope I haven't taken too much time, and I hope you learned something. It is a special day. It's his birthday. It's a good day to talk. Remember.
Thank you so much.
It was really nice to hear all these stories.
Actually, I've been watching all those 3-hour documentaries.
Oh, you
I
was
like
yes,
they were having like some moments.
yes.
I was just following.
Yes.
It was really interesting.
All right.